70-year-old Radhakrishan Pandita treasured his 17 canals of farmland in Kupwara. He left Kashmir in 1990, carefully keeping the papers for his property. But 3 years ago, he was shocked to see a notice in the local papers inviting objections to the sale of his land. He has written many letters to the government saying that the sale is without his consent, but he has got no response.
नोटिफिकेशन 10-15 दिया तो कोई नोटिफिकेशन नहीं आया वहाँ से, लिहाजा कोई बात हमारी नहीं हुई तो हम ढूंढते ही कुछ ना चाहिए, हम पढ़े ही गरीब आदमी हैं, क्या करें सर।
Most of the 35,000 Kashmiri Pandits living in Jammu have lost property in the valley, some to encroachments, some to government apathy. Janki Nath of Shokpura village, Handwara, says his land and ancestral home have been encroached upon. When he returned to his village after 14 years, the police did not even register his complaint.
हम कुपवारा गए डीसी साहब के पास, वहाँ जब हम गए तो उसको बोला, दरख्वास्त दिया, सर आप हमारी मकानों की, हमारी प्रॉपर्टी को ये एफआईआर क्यों नहीं काटी, एफआईआर काटो। हम थाने में भी गया था, एसएचओ साहब ने कहा कि नहीं, पहले तो किसी मिनिस्टर से लिख कर लिया।
In Kashmir, over 4,000 acres of land and over 6,000 acres of orchards belong to Kashmiri Pandits, most of which is either sold or has been lost. Migrants allege that in many cases it is the government that has encroached on their property.
Example of Sogam, where the land has been taken by the government and school and police thana has been constructed. In Varina, Sibring, the Vethwatur, which we call the holy Sibring for Kashmiri Hindus, there has been converted into water reservoir by the government.
What was once the green orchard has turned into a barren land. What was once their happy home is nothing less than a set of ruins. Blame it on distress or circumstances that majority of the Kashmiri Pandits had to let go of their property in Kashmir. But there's still a few who harbor the dream to return to their paradise. With camera person Neeraj Upadhyay in Muthi, Pavan Bali.
In Srinagar was once a center of Kashmiri culture and heritage and home to hundreds of Kashmiri Pandit families. Today the houses of all those who migrated in the winter of 1990 fearing militancy lie in ruins. Years later the Pandits find that most of their property has been sold off.
Around about 80% of the property of those migrants has been sold out. Our shrine and temple property is being sold and government is a silent spectator to it.
Records show that over 3 lakh Kashmiri Pandits migrated from Kashmir in the 90s, leaving behind property worth hundreds of crores. Most now live in cramped relief camps across the country, 35,000 families in Jammu alone.
People, at least of my generation or my generation above, would like to return to their roots. That's what I know for certain.
But Ravi Tusu may never find his house. Packs of dogs now rule Abba Khadal. Ravi has no idea where his neighbors are. He does not say on record how many homes have been sold, but he knows more than 2/3 are gone. Former Jammu and Kashmir Revenue Minister Hakeem Yasin agrees.
हमारी रेवेन्यू एजेंसियां है, तो उनसे जो हमने सर्वे करवाई उसके मुताबिक 75% के करीब वो ज़मीन उन्होंने दी।
In Jammu and Kashmir, there is a law to prevent the sale of Kashmiri Pandit property. Yet 80% of this property in the Kashmir Valley has been sold off. How did the state government allow this to happen? The cameraman Bashir Ahmed and Mufti Islah in Srinagar, Rohit Krishna. 31st March 2006, a Delhi trial court declared the 5 accused in the Irfan Hussain murder case not guilty. The judge said there was not enough evidence. But documents with CNN IBN revealed serious omissions in the Delhi police investigations. Item 1, 20 photographs taken at the crime scene are missing. In a letter to the Joint Commissioner of Police Legal Cell, Police Prosecutor A.K. Padhi says the investigating officer Inspector Prem Singh refused to produce these 20 crucial negatives.
मेरे हिसाब से इसमें ना तो डायरेक्ट कोई एविडेंस है ना इनडायरेक्ट। सर्कमस्टेंशियल जो थी that was too weak. उसमें जो public witness थे, they turned hostile. Police officials were not believed by the court. This is all.
The police and prosecution were often at loggerheads. In fact, DCP P.N. Mohan of the Delhi police actually demanded public prosecutor A.K. Padi's removal. And then police witnesses themselves turned hostile during the case. In a letter to the Principal Home Secretary Delhi, Prosecutor Padi wrote how after positively identifying the accused Shahid earlier in court, the police witnesses preferred to give an elusive answer, "It may be." According to the public prosecutor, Judge Gupta cynically said, "Daily so many public witnesses are becoming hostile, just leave it."
Be it Priyadarshini Mattu or be it Jessica Lal, cases like these suggest a sinister pattern. First, the investigation is botched up comprehensively, and then the case is further weakened by the quality of material evidence produced before the court.
Meanwhile, Irfan Hussein's killers are still at large, with Brajesh Pandey in Delhi, Rohit Khanna.
We are in the Bastar region of Chhattisgarh, where inside the dense forests of Dandakaranya, the Maoists allowed our correspondent Vanaja to film for IBN Special Investigation what they describe as their first liberated zone.
We call it the Red Corridor, and it begins in Nepal and runs from Bihar and Jharkhand through Bengal, Orissa, Chhattisgarh and Maharashtra right up to Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. But it is here in southern Chhattisgarh where the Maoists have set up their first liberated zone, the Dandakaranya Liberated Zone, run by a parallel government set up by the Maoists called the Janatana Sarkar.
It took 4 days for me to reach a Maoist camp in the deep forests of Dandakaranya. I travelled by train, bus, motorcycle and finally on foot. It is in this inaccessible part of central India where my journey into Naxal heartland began.
Walking is a way of life for all Maoists, and if one wants to know more about them, one has to walk with them. The first thing that a dalam or a squad of 10 armed guerrillas does at the crack of dawn is walk. This is standard Maoist strategy, not to camp at a place for more than 12 hours. Bastar is where the Maoists are setting up what they describe as their first liberated zone in the making. One soon notices the familiarity between the villagers and a squad passing by. They regularly exchange the Lal Salam, an unmistakable sign of solidarity.
The Suraksha Committee is to protect villages, people and the squads from informers, CIDs and police.
It is this familiarity of the Maoists with the Adivasis that has enabled the Maoists to operate freely amongst the villages in the Dandakaranya forest. Like in this village where they line up to meet Ganesh Uike, one of the 5 division secretaries in Dandakaranya.
पूरा हम लोग एक जनता सरकार का हम लोग ये तय किए हैं कि 500 जनसंख्या 500 से 3000 तक जनसंख्या के एक यूनिट लेना चाहिए। उसमें आम जनता का जो भागीदारी से ग्राम सभा का आयोजन करके आम जनता उसमें भागीदारी करके चुन के जो है ना एक जनता सरकार कमेटी का आरपीसी कमेटी का जो है ना चुनती है।
Hidden in the forest behind me, there is a quiet revolution taking root. I did see what you must have seen in media, that of Maoist squads carrying weapons. But I also saw that most of the squad members are teenagers, half of them are women, and almost all of them are local Adivasis.
These are Maoist propaganda films showing the People's Guerrilla Army, well-armed rebels on the march to fight the Indian security forces. Powered by Maoist guns, the Adivasis of Dandakaranya now have a voice. This is how hundreds of Adivasis responded to a Naxal call for a public meeting. Trekking kilometers through the forest, complete with food and provisions. Deep inside Chhattisgarh, CNN IBN attended one such meeting, where local leaders of the Maoist Janatana Sarkar addressed the gathering. On
On the ground, Adivasi leaders like Sannu are the face of the Maoist parallel government. Here he paints Janatana Sarkar on a red cloth, even as local Adivasis help and watch.
Our Sarkar gets people to work in cooperatives to dig wells and irrigation tanks. Plowing the land, sowing seeds, harvesting is also done by cooperatives. All this will liberate the area from the Indian government.
The Janatana Sarkar today controls a vast tract of land stretching from Gadchiroli in Maharashtra to the Abuzmad and Bastar districts in Chhattisgarh. The Maoist writ runs over 92,000 square kilometers, an area twice the size of Kerala. Ganesh Uike, one of the 5 division secretaries in Dandakaranya, was instrumental in the setting up of this special zone.
25-30 लोग चंद लोग आके जो है आज हजारों तादाद में हम लोग यहाँ जो है कैडर को विकास कर पाए। सैकड़ों हजारों में भी हमारे जन संगठन का सदस्य भी है, लाखों में हमारा जनता में हमारा जो है पकड़ाव है।
As one travels through this Naxal heartland, it is impossible to miss the sickle and hammer. This is the official Maoist flag of the Dandakaranya special zone, not the Indian tricolour.
While the absence of the flag is symbolic, the fact is that the writ of the Government of India does not run in the so-called Dandakaranya liberated zone. So much so that the Maoists have a constitutional roadmap called the Janatana Sarkar Policy Program, with which they intend to replace the Government of India.
Starting with children is also part of Maoist strategy. Adivasi children are encouraged to imitate Maoist guerrilla tactics in their games. As one set of children posing as a police patrol walks into Maoist territory, it is attacked. And as the surprised policemen stumble and fall, they are shot. And when the Maoist role models come visiting, children line up to shake hands with the squad leader. Not surprisingly, the upper age limit to join the People's Guerrilla Army is 16 years. And children like Lakshman are willing recruits.
I will join them and fight against the police.
While the Maoists say that they stepped in to fill a vacuum of governance, Tribal Congress leader Mahindra Karma argues that the Maoists systematically destroyed government institutions using terror and have imposed themselves on the Adivasis.
एरियाज में जहां पर प्रशासनिक पहुंच या प्रशासन का दबाव कमजोर था, ऐसे क्षेत्रों को इन लोगों ने हमेशा के लिए अपने दबाव में लेकर प्रशासन तंत्र के लिए पैरालाइज कर दिया था।
But the Maoists disagree. They say that guerrilla warfare was not needed to establish their control in Dandakaranya.
पूरे देश को जो है ना अनइवन डेवलपमेंट में सर्जिकल उसके इम्पोर्टेंस के अनुसार अपना पार्टी का निर्माण अपना शक्तियों के अनुसार वहाँ तैनात करके जो है ना वो लिबरेटेड जोन में एरिया में तब्दील करने के लिए हम लोग आज हमारा शक्तियों को वहाँ केंद्रित करके काम कर रहे हैं। उसी का अंतर्गत एक एरिया का हम लोग चुने हैं।
One of the steps taken by the Maoists was to stop the exploitation of the Adivasis by petty government and village officials.
Forest rangers and patwaris harassed us. They imposed fines for cutting firewood, for grazing. They took money for our animals. They even fined us for cutting wood.
The Maoists have mobilized the Adivasis around a range of grievances, real and invented, and the idea of a Janatana Sarkar or people's government is central to this strategy. First, to exploit the complete absence of the government, and second, to convince Adivasis through the Janatana Sarkar that the Indian state is not worried about their welfare.
I was here for 8 days and have seen the Maoist-run Janatana Sarkar in action. What I can say is, this has definitely added a new dimension to the violent image of the Naxal movement.
From Bihar to Andhra Pradesh, the Naxals or the Maoists are now one party. That they have an armed capability, we have recently seen in Jahanabad. The Maoists, organized under the Janatana Sarkar, have also shown that they can govern as well. When will the Government of India respond?
the parallel government set up by the Maoists, the Chhattisgarh government has initiated a massive retraining program in this counter-terrorism and jungle warfare school to create a commando police force. Some Chhattisgarh police commandos trained here have already gone into action, flushing out Maoist guerrillas in the Dandakaranya jungles. They move in the direction of fire and finally capture 2 Maoist guerrillas. Many such battles are being fought every day in the Maoist Red Corridor, and the police commandos are now winning some of them. Set up in August last year, capable of training over 3,000 police commandos annually, terrorism and jungle warfare school was set up by Brigadier Panwar. And this is his motto.
Fight the gorilla like a gorilla. We got to get out the roads. We got to get out of the thanas. We've got to go into the jungles.
60% of Chhattisgarh is jungle, where the People's Guerrilla Army is based, territory where the police have rarely ventured. And so the new emphasis on training police commandos for jungle warfare.
सर उनकी बात क्या है सर, वो छुपे हैं और छुप के सर रहना हमारे लिए अच्छी बात नहीं है सर. अगर हम सही हैं तो हम सामने से आएंगे सर.
Chhattisgarh Director General of Police O.P. Rathore has got the necessary approvals to give a military edge to the state's police forces.
The normal police force is not trained to do this kind of job. And if an ill-trained police force is sent and pitted against army-trained type guerrillas, it is no match.
Intelligence available with CNN IBN suggests that the strength of the People's Guerrilla Army stands at 10,000 across the country. With a network of about 50,000 overground supporters, they can now strike at will and in large numbers, like the November 2005 attack on Jahanabad, when a force of 1,000 Maoists set free 300 of their comrades from the Jahanabad jail.
They've got the weapons, they've got the training, they've got the ideology in place, and they're gradually spreading this red carpet. In fact, if you come here on this map, you see the police stations with these red, green triangles. They are marked by these pins. This much of area, there are no police stations here.
CNN IBN's Special Investigation Team has exclusive access to maps and documents that reveal that almost 27% of Indian territory is under Maoist control, backed by military training provided by the LTTE.
They have these outside alliances. We've got video clippings of the LTTE giving them training in ID methodology, how it can be used. And this is being used extensively all across the board.
The first step in countering the Maoist Janatana Sarkar is to militarily reverse the situation by sending in well-trained police commandos to wage jungle warfare against the Maoist guerrillas.
Intention of the state government and I suppose of the central government would be to replace the red flag here with the Indian tricolor. I mean, that's really the point.
Absolutely.
This helidrome in the Jungle Warfare College was built by literally flattening the top of a hill. And it is from here that battle-ready police commandos will be airlifted 120 kilometers south to Abuzmaj in the dense Dandakaranya forests to flush out the Maoists. Fact 1. The Maoists have set up a government in Dandakaranya. Fact 2. The centre is yet to respond with a coherent strategy. But the people on the ground have a way of expressing their voice. Next we see that administering an area is not as easy as fighting for its control.
The worst single act of violence by the Maoists in the last 30 years. 55 Adivasi villagers killed by a landmine in Dantewada, punished for participating in Salwa Jurum, an anti-Maoist campaign in southern Chhattisgarh. Salwa Jurum, which loosely means Peace March, is actively supported by the state.
It is known as the Peace March. The villagers, they organize rallies, they put community pressure, and because of the community pressure, a lot of tribals who have joined Naxalites, they come back and surrender. So in all, more than 400 Naxalites have already surrendered.
On the ground, Salwa Jurum is led by Mahendra Karma, the Adivasi leader of the Congress in Chhattisgarh, backed and funded by Chief Minister Raman Singh's BJP government. Since June 2005, he has campaigned in Adivasi villages on the edge of the Dandakaranya liberated zone set up by the Maoists, urging Adivasis to rise against them.
ये स्थितियां ऐसी आएंगी कि वो सभी लोगों को अपने से अपने मतलब बचाव में सरेंडर करना होगा.
By summer, the government wants the Salwa Jurum campaign to enter Maoist-controlled territory.
Salwa Jurum is taking place along this border here. How does Salwa Jurum get here in this center? It has to be done by a multi-pronged strategy. And all economic, political, social, psychological have got to be in here. It is the security forces which have to take the first step.
CNN IBN Special Investigative Team got exclusive access to this Maoist leader in a jail, who believes that it will be impossible to subdue the Maoists through military means.
इनके उद्देश्य है, टारगेट रखते हैं कि इनको हमको मार देने से शायद कम हो जाए। इनकी राज्य सरकार या प्रशासन का ये सोच रहा है, लेकिन ऐसी कोई बात है नहीं। हमको अंदर आ जाने से, हमको मारे जाने से उनकी संगठनों क्या बोलते हैं आगे बढ़ने की जो प्रक्रिया में कोई कमी नहीं आएगी।
So Salva Judum, portrayed as a spontaneous movement, some believe is actually part of the larger military operation.
In effect, it is a ground clearing movement that is removing the tribals from their villages at gunpoint and forcing them to come and stay in the camps.
This has led to a Maoist retribution against the Adivasis. More than 150 Adivasis have been killed by Maoists since the Salva Judum began.
ये आपका दायित्व बनता है कि आप डेवलपमेंट पैकेज लेकर उन क्षेत्रों में जाइए। अगर आप ऐसा नहीं किए तो ये आंदोलन में जो किकबैक की जो संभावनाएं हैं फिर वहां पैदा होंगी।
This is the unfortunate side effect of the Maoist movement. Thousands of tribals have been displaced from their traditional forest habitats and herded into relief camps like this in Bastar and Dantewada.
To attract the Adivasi supporters of the Maoists to relief camps like this, the government has announced a rehabilitation package. A few months ago, these Adivasis were Sangam members, the Maoist intelligence network.
तुम्हारे साथ हम रहेंगे, तुम कभी ना ऐसा नहीं भटकोगे, हम तुम्हारे साथ रहेंगे, पुलिस वाला आएंगे तो हम मार के भगाएंगे।
But Salva Judum has now given the security forces the opportunity to enter Abuzmad, where the core of the Maoist force is based.
Peculiarly in our state, the politician has gone up to this line. They have started with Salva Judum. But for him to get in here, it has to be the security force.
The military strategy behind Salva Judum is to break the Maoist network in the tribal areas of southern Chhattisgarh.
इन गर्मियों तक हम लोग दंतेवाड़ा जिले के सभी गांवों में जो भी नक्सली नेटवर्क है हम उसको खत्म करने की स्थिति में होंगे।
This police camp in Dantewada is a sign of the government's efforts to break the Maoist network. Adivasi boys training to become special police officers to take on the Maoists.
With the setting up of their parallel government, have the Maoists moved beyond slogans, guns and violence? Have they been able to provide a functioning alternative to the government they wish to overthrow? And what are they doing to win the hearts and minds of the tribals?
Well coordinated and lethal in impact, Maoist attacks are now regular all across the Red Corridor. Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, West Bengal and Andhra Pradesh. This violence characterizes the front line of their war with the Indian government. But deep inside their first liberated zone in the Red Corridor, the Dandakaranya liberated zone, the Maoists have begun a new experiment. These are activists of the Chetna Natya Manch, a Maoist cultural organization performing at a Maoist rally. The aim is to make the Adivasis proud of their identity and to bind them to the Maoists and their Janatana Sarkar. Senior Maoist commanders call it a unique experiment in their usually violent struggle against the government. A bloodless revolution bringing change and self-respect to the Adivasis.
वो तो कि वो देने वाला हो गया, अपन लेने वाला वो चेतना सही नहीं है ना। वो देने वाला है, उसको हटाओ, हटा के उसको खींच लो। ये चेतना आपको जगाना चाहिए। उसी हिसाब से हम लोग क्या है कि जहाँ हमारा शक्ति है या ताकत बढ़ गई तो हम वहाँ ये कर रहे हैं कि भाई तालाब बनाना, कुआं बनाना और आपके जो है भूमि का समतलीकरण करना, जो खेती बाड़ी के विकास करना।
In the absence of local administration, the Maoists have a new mantra: revolution through development. For instance, Adivasis follow a form of shifting cultivation, hardly relying on irrigation. But the Maoists introduced a more settled form of agriculture, kicking off simple irrigation projects such as this ingenious water drawing system. They explain that the Adivasis' needs are in fact very simple.
इधर पूरा लोग 98% पूरे यहाँ किसान है, एक ही फसल आता है, पूरा वर्षा बने वो भगवान के ऊपर निर्भर है, वर्षा आधारित है। इसलिए हम ये कर रहे हैं कि ये मांग कर रहे हैं, पूरा आज दंतेवाड़ा जिले में आप देखिए केवल 2% लैंड इरिगेशन है सरकार के मुताबिक, उतना भी नहीं है, फिर भी उसका फाइल के ऊपर ही जो है 2% है, आप देखिए। तो इसलिए आपको प्राथमिकता क्या होना चाहिए, जितना होता है इरिगेशन प्रोजेक्ट का आपका 80% आपका फंड्स अलॉटमेंट होना चाहिए।
Till the government arrives in water-starved Bastar, the Janatana Sarkar pushes on, rallying Adivasis to construct lakes. These lake projects are now the focus of the anti-government movement. Water and fish from the lakes is shared equally. The surplus sold to raise funds for more development. The Maoist Vikas or development committees also run cooperatives, simple measures that are empowering the Adivasis.
The Vikas committee organizes cooperatives. 5 families make up a cooperative. Together they plow the land, harvest crops, take up poultry, etc. They also join common irrigation projects.
The Maoists say that an informal tax system is also being put into practice.
फसल उत्पत्ति सामूहिक रूप से जो भी तिल माने दलहन जो है उत्पत्ति करते हैं, और कुछ जो क्या बोलते हैं कि और जो गांव में जो भी सामूहिक रूप से जो संपदा है तो उसमें कुछ मैंने ये विकास योजना के लिए कुछ फंड्स वसूल करना।
This building, a school under construction, is another step in the evolution of the Maoist parallel government. In the Dandakaranya forests, there are simply no functioning government schools, and that yet again gives the advantage to the Maoists. In the battle for the hearts and minds of the Adivasis, right now it's the Maoists who seem to be winning. In just 15 months, the Maoist People's Guerrilla Army has established its control in an arc from Bihar to Andhra Pradesh. And these remnants of the latest Maoist attack, a truck blown up by a landmine claiming 28 Adivasi lives, is a ruthless warning from the Maoists to those who dare to participate in the Salwa Judum, a government-sponsored anti-Maoist movement in southern Chhattisgarh.
A 10,000-strong guerrilla army has established its presence in 170 districts across 15 states in the country, and their objective is to overthrow elected governments, first by consolidating their rule in rural areas and then advancing to encircle the cities.
Even at Jahanabad, they had done some kind of a decoy element of firing at certain other police locations so nobody comes to each other's rescue. They did the same thing here at Gidam police station when Gidam police station was attacked. Even at Koraput in Orissa, where 8 targets were attacked simultaneously.
The Home Ministry says the Maoists claimed 900 lives in 2005 compared to 650 in 2004. In 2003, the Maoists were in 55 districts across 9 states. 2 years later, their presence is felt in 170 districts across 13 states. Today, the Maoists are a dominant force in 27% of the country.
The Politburo of the Naxalites say by 2010, 33% of India will be in their hands. They're working towards it. They're spreading this red carpet across the length and breadth of our country.
The Red Corridor begins in Nepal and runs from Bihar and Jharkhand through Bengal, Orissa, Chhattisgarh and Maharashtra right up to Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. But it is here in southern Chhattisgarh where the Maoists have set up their first liberated zone, the Dandakaranya Liberated Zone, run by a parallel government set up by the Maoists called the Janatana Sarkar. Guided by this man, Muppala Lakshman Rao or Ganapati, and his other guerrilla comrades. The Maoists have tapped the discontent of some of India's most backward areas that are rich in forest and mineral resources.
जहाँ कहीं भी रिसोर्स है वहाँ फॉरेस्ट है और जहाँ फॉरेस्ट है वहाँ ट्राइबल है. ये पॉलिटिशियंस के लिए ये एक अनटच प्रॉब्लम था और वो हमेशा इसको पॉलिटिकली प्लस माइनस के दृष्टिकोण से देखा, तो ये फायदा पहुंचाने वाला जॉब नहीं था.
Mahindra Karma blames lack of political will to tackle the Maoist threat. Home Ministry figures reveal that Delhi had marked 2,500 crore rupees 2 years ago to develop areas under Maoist control. But on the ground, nothing has changed.
Huge amounts of money have been spent in Bastar and Sarguja, and none of it has reached the tribals. So where is all this money going?
In the absence of development, the Maoists may soon be able to hold the nation to ransom.
इस देश की अर्थव्यवस्था और इस देश की राजनीति को आगे चलकर एक ब्लैकमेल या एक पैरालाइज करने का एक बहुत बड़ा साजिश के तहत इन लोग काम कर रहे हैं, जिसको इसकी मतलब गंभीरता को हम लोग नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं.
The red corridor that stretches all the way from Nepal down to Andhra Pradesh coincides with the corridor of the most deprived in India. Sadly, this beautiful part of the country is also the most resource rich. And if the fruits of development do not reach out to the Adivasis living in this region, it will be impossible to win the battle against the Maoists. With Vanaja, V.K. Shashi Kumar in Bastar.